You're listening to the Higher Grade Help Podcast, tips and strategies for service providers. This podcast is designed to help service providers build strong teams and grow their businesses. Hosted by me, workforce development industry expert Sina Martin, each episode will cover a range of topics related to hiring and team building in the service industry. From finding top talent to conducting effective interviews, this podcast will provide insights and strategies to help service providers hire and retain the best team members. If you're looking to grow your business through effective hiring and team building, this podcast is for you. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Whether you're brand new here or you've been around the block with us a few times, I'm so grateful for your ear today or tonight, whenever you're listening to this. I'm so grateful for your ear. Thank you so much. On today's episode, we're going to talk about creating a positive work-life balance for your team. This is a part of a series that I'm going to release on the show shortly. I know we're still in the beginning phases. Can't believe we're already going into our next few episodes before we hit our first 10. So, consistency. So excited. But this is going to be a part of a series I'm going to be releasing here soon on the show. And it's all about creating a culture that invites high performers and creating a culture that supports transparency, honesty, and the development of real leaders on your team. And so to kick off this series that we have coming down the pipeline, I wanted to talk today about creating a positive work-life balance for your team. First of all, before we even get into this topic, before I even share with you like what inspired this topic, I have to tell you about a business challenge that we have coming up here in just a couple of weeks. So my team and I have been working very, very diligently behind the scenes on this, and I'm so excited to share that my company, my team and I, everyone at Higher Grade Help, we're now offering a brand new 5-day Building Business Resilience Challenge. It's a 5-day event, and it's going to kick off on May 8th. And this challenge aims to help you create a business culture that increases your visibility as a leader, as a CEO within your team, and it helps you to build better business structure and connections. This challenge is an opportunity for you to audit your processes, identify your business strengths and weaknesses, all while building resilience in this digital age of transformation. If you are paying attention to what's happening in the world around us, everything is changing. It's moving towards a different economy, towards a different structure, a different way of doing business, a different way of thinking. The speed that it takes to innovate is at a different level right now. And so that requires a level of resilience. And a lot of, our clients and you, a listener of the show or someone who is a part of this community, we all relate on one thing. We got it out the mud. We got it out the mud. Like we started from either very little or, we started with a hope and a wish and a notebook and a prayer, right? $1 and a dream, as they would say. And, we had to figure out how to build this brick by brick as we went along. But the thing about it is when you get stuck in hustle culture and hustle mindset and you don't think about what's required to consistently reinvent yourself and to transform how you are approaching your leadership development and how you are approaching building your team, communicating with your team, creating positive balance within your team. You don't evaluate those things, or really what it is you don't slow down to evaluate those things. It can put you in a place where you become your biggest threat and you may be the tipping point that could put you out of business. So to help you identify your strengths, your weaknesses, and your bottlenecks while determining what your greatest levers of opportunity are for you to build resilience back in your business. We've put together this 5-day challenge that really is unlike any challenge you've gone to. I can say that confidently. Out of the hundreds of challenges I've attended, I can say this very confidently. Confidently, you've never been to a challenge like the one that we're going to be given on May 8th through May 12th. And this is an opportunity for you to increase your visibility as a leader, not your visibility on not your visibility on social media, not your visibility of being consistent on your favorite platforms, but rather looking at how visible is your vision among the people who work with you on a day-to-day basis. How visible are you even to your team? Or are you operating as that CEO that's throwing work at them and treating them as the doers, as the task rabbits, the workhorses that have to get it done? And rarely do they have a human heart to heart connection with you as their leader, right? They don't understand your vision. They don't see where you're trying to take the business because you're not very visible to them in that space. So that's where we're going to help you uncover, unpack, and pull apart at the Building Business Resilience Challenge. We're kicking it off May 8th. It's going to last for 5 days until May 12th. Registration actually opens up tomorrow. So you're getting the first dibs on it if you're listening to my voice right now on this episode. But I want you to show up for yourself, and show up for the people who work for you, who count on you to consistently develop and to get better so that they can follow your lead and do the same. So, mini commercial over. Let's jump into today's episode. The reason I wanted to talk about creating a positive work life balance for your team is because I did an exercise today. And I'm just looking around on my desk to actually pull it out as a reference point. But essentially, what I did was I did this exercise today, and I just kind of made it up, like, you know, thinking through some of our offers and um, behind the business, we're working on refining our positioning, right? And just looking at some areas where we're being resilient, where we're not, where our weaknesses are, where we can improve, where we can tighten up, become more concise in how we serve, and um, really how we deliver our services is what I should say. How we deliver our services to our clients. And so, with that in mind, I took most of today to create a offer that we're going to be releasing here in the coming month. And so I was up as I was putting together that offer and going through what if you've been in any of the higher grade help coaching programs, if you've been in exponential experience, if you've taken any of our accelerators, thank you. Words cannot express the gratitude that I have for you investing in us, investing in yourself, but trusting us on this journey of your own growth from solopreneur to CEO. Just thank you so much for that. And I was going through some of those conversations and just looking at the data, honestly, that we have on or from um, you, our clients who have gone through these programs. And so I was just reading through it, and I created a health report, so to speak. You know, when you have to take your like, if you have any young kids, or if you have any kids that are in like middle school like I do, you know how you have to take them to go get their physical if they want to try out for a sport or anything with physical activity. You have to typically go to make sure their records are updated at school. And so I said, let me come up with like a physical for my clients, right? And so I created this little chart out of this really cute paper that I had from a planner that I purchased. I think I bought it at Joann's. Actually, it was towards the beginning of the year when we were doing a goal setting workshop in Atlanta. And so I pulled out some of this paper and I created like this health report on our clients. And I just went through and looked at what each of them said. And one of the biggest things that kept coming up as I was creating that report and looking for the similarities between experiences across our wide spectrum of clients was that it's a struggle to create work life balance for you as the individual, like you as the person, right? You as the person who's operating as a CEO. It's a challenge for a lot of you, and this may be true for you as you're listening to this, as you're listening to me talk about this right now. But it's a challenge to create a balance for yourself. But what I noticed is the thing about it is that you're skipping over the necessity to create balance for yourself amongst your own work and your personal life for whatever the reason may be. And you're beating yourself up for not infusing that very same work life balance that doesn't exist for you into your team members. You want your team members to feel appreciated, and you want them to be able to take over more support so that it gives you free time in the business. But you care about their balance more than your own. Let me know if like this is resonating or if it's hitting or if it's making sense. Let me know somewhere below wherever you're watching this episode if this is hitting and making sense. Drop a comment and tell me if that's true or not. But that's something I noticed that kept coming up as I was going through this health report that I created on our clients. And I said, wow, that's so interesting that the one word every single one of our clients, and that maybe you, if you were a past client of ours, has said on the intake forms, for example, that we um, have you fill out when you first join one of our programs is overwhelm. Overwhelm kept coming up over and over again. And in the same breath, you want your team members to feel at ease and you want them to embrace your clients the way you would. And you want them to have care and consideration and a soft life. You see where I'm going with this? How can you disseminate peace if you don't have that? Yeah, so that's what inspired this episode today, and it's really why I wanted to talk about this topic. So that's a little backstory on it. But let me go into why this is important. Why this is so very, very important. This is something that I I'm not going to say I live by it, but what I will say is it's a it's a non-negotiable value of mine at this point. At this point in the game for me, I've been in business since 2014, officially incorporated since 2019. Um, going into year 9 at this stage of the game, I refuse to negotiate having positive work-life balance in my team. One thing for me is I have to rest more than I work. And the reason for that is because when I work, I go in, like I go hard. I will easily put in 14-hour days, 15-hour days, if that's my duty too. Like right now, we're going into a launch season. And I'm going to talk about this further into the show, how to know the difference between seasons of balance and seasons of building. But when I build, I go in, right? So because of that, I have to rest more then I would actually work. That doesn't mean I'm sleeping in, late into the day until 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And, that that doesn't mean that I'm only working 2-hour work weeks. That's not the case at all. I am not there by any means. But what I am saying is that rest is highly prioritized. And it's been that way for me probably for I'd say the last 6 years or so, 5 or 6 years or so. And I've over time, especially with having kids, I found myself attempting to backslide into old habits and backslide into old ways of, working and overworking and not listening to my body. But to be very honest with you, at this point in my life, at this age, like early 30s, I just don't have time for that. It's it's not in my interest at all to burn out, to be overwhelmed, to be overworked. And you may want to get to that point. The one thing I can say is the way I got to this point is that I made it a priority that I refused to compromise my life for what needed to be done in work. I refused to compromise it. And sometimes that requires drastic actions. Like sometimes you have to do drastic things to reach that level. I've had to literally burn my business down at least 2 or 3 times. And I mean literally start from scratch, like zero clients, zero services for sale, retire all my digital products, no team, going from a team of 4 back to a team of 1. Multiple times I've had to tear the whole house down. Like it was a full tear down so we could rebuild. But that's what you have to have, that level of dedication if you really want to achieve work life balance. And let me say this too. I did a live stream on this like about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, where I said there really is no such thing as work life balance. That's actually a myth. There's really no such thing as work life balance. What it is you prioritize. You prioritize what's most important in that moment. I don't believe in balance. It's not really about balance. It's actually about priority because we live in a world that's so out of balance. Yeah? We live in a reality in a world that's just so out of balance. If you get into that and if you get into those conversations, you can look around you and see how things are moving and how the let's just use a couple examples, right? There's so much going on with like the healthcare industry, the food, the food right now, right? All of these debates about GMO and what's going on with the air quality and global warming. Like the world's out of balance. There is no if, ands, or buts about that part. So it's very difficult to find balance when you're living in an unbalanced place. However, priority is something you always have control over. And if you are destined and determined to not die from work, you have to get your priorities in order. Yeah? That's why I think this is so important. This is something that it's not an option because the choice will be made for you if you don't make the choice. And so when I'm going back to what I said initially, which was work life balance or having a positive prioritization of work and life within my team is a non-negotiable. I mean that. And that's why I've had team members who burnt out and couldn't work for 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at a time because they got themselves sick or they were, slaving away. I hate to use that word, but working extremely hard and then going home and trying to be a parent and trying to be a sister and trying to be a spouse and it doesn't it doesn't pan out the way that you think it's going to. You can only do so much because your physical body only has so much to give in the day. You've heard this so many times. I'm not saying anything that you haven't heard. But what I will say that you may have not heard is the choice will be made for you. Either you're going to sit your ass down or your body is going to sit yourself down. One or the other. So that's why this is so important to me. Now let's talk about, well, right here I'm going to pause. Let's pay a couple bills and we'll be right back. I have a new ebook that I'm putting the finishing touches on, getting edited, and I'm super excited because I haven't put out an ebook in, oh gosh, it's been like 6 years since the last time I actually released and wrote an ebook. So this one, I put a lot of time into it. Anyway, I want you to know about it. It's called Rise Up: Effective Workforce Management for Startups, and this book is like, when I tell you, it's the thing I wish I had. It's like the bread and butter of what I wish I had when I started hiring people for my team and when I started building my own workforce for my company. So if you want practical tips and strategies for managing and motivating your team to achieve success in your business, and you want to make sure that you are giving them effective feedback, and you want to understand how to encourage them to manage their day-to-day schedules and all of the things it really takes to not micromanage, but empower people who are working for you, this ebook is like the blueprint on how to do it front to back. I don't leave anything out. So there's a link or website around this video or around this episode if you're listening to this on the podcast somewhere. So check the show notes or check the description. But go ahead and pre-order that ebook. Put your name on the pre-order list, and you'll be able to pre-order the ebook so that you can get the first chapter before the rest of the general public. And I'll make sure that you get a couple of bonuses too for being one of the first readers. I can't wait for you to read it. Okay, welcome back. So talking about creating a positive work-life balance for your team, let's go into the next part of this, or the next section of this, which is how I've been able to do this. How I've been able to do this. I think the thing that's given me the ability to be able to do this is, one, I had to get myself into a habit of rest. Oh, that's a really good way to say that. I had to get myself into a habit of rest. What I mean by that is this. If you've followed me on Instagram or Facebook or really any of our social medias, I'm typically on Instagram and LinkedIn the most. Um, but our community, if you're in our community, or if you follow me on Facebook, then you've seen me talk about this for years at this point. It's a recurring theme in my content. I fully believe in taking sabbaticals. Probably not, and it's probably not the type of sabbaticals you're used to hearing people say. Like people, sometimes I'll see, coaches and business owners talk about sabbaticals like it's a luxurious thing, right? Like, oh, I'm taking a like I'm going to take a sabbatical, and it sounds cute, but that's not what that's not what I mean. Um, we have a rest day that comes in every single week. It's not set to a certain day. I won't get into all the details because I keep my spiritual walk very separate from the business conversation. But what I will say, for the sake of this episode, and because I truly want to help you start to explore what this path could look like, is my separate, set apart spiritual walk had to become very tight. Okay. And I don't mean tight in the sense of there's no space for you to move, you're stuck or you're trapped. That's not what I mean. What I mean by tight is discipline. Okay. Let's clarify. My spiritual walk had to become very disciplined, which I'm still working on. By no means have I perfected that. However, that was the beginning of me being able to create positive work life balance for myself so that I could teach it to my team. And one of the things that greatly helped me do that was following um, a ordinance, you could say, of taking a rest day every single week. There's a rest day that comes in every single week, and we acknowledge that. And when I say we, I mean my whole house shuts down. Okay. We don't cook, we don't work, we don't answer emails, we don't look at as much as I can. Like, it's to the point where I'll delete my social media apps off my phone. Everything is shut down because that day is to rest. Everything rests to the point where we'll get sleepy like early in the day or during that like morning and just want to sleep that whole day. And it's not always on the same day every single week, but it's just a day of rest. That has trained myself, my family, even my kids to have a consistent cycle of resting and resetting. And because that is something that is non negotiable for our spiritual walk, I then begin to share that with my team members. So if you ask anyone who's on the Higher Grade Help team about Sabbath day, they'll tell you we don't have team meetings. We don't talk that day. We don't, get into our Slack channels that day, nothing. It doesn't matter if it's in the middle of a Tuesday, it's not happening. Right. And that's what I mean by having balance and not putting work above all else. Now, of course, you have to have systems in place and you have to have certain processes that will allow your customers to continue to be um helped and answered and taken care of really while you are taking these rest days. It's a process to get there. That's a whole process that I'll be talking about in the 5-day business building business resilience challenge. So if you're interested in it, make sure you get registered for the challenge when we open up the doors tomorrow morning. You'll see me post up about it, or you could just go to challenge.highergradehelp.com and you'll be able to get registered for the challenge. And to do this, like I said, you have to have systems and processes in place. But that is something that my whole team they see me do it. And I'll say, our rest day is on this day. Our rest day is coming up this day, this month, or it's coming up at this time, or it's coming up, whatever. And they'll know month by month by month what the rest days are. It's on our team calendar. So it's without a question. And it doesn't matter if, we have an international team. We have a hybrid team. So some of us are in person, some of us are, on a continent. We're really spread out all over. At one point we had team members who were in other countries, in India, all over the place. So we're not all in one central location. However, when those rest days come, we work out what the time zone difference is, and everyone knows it's a rest day. Right? You're not talking to Cena today. It's not happening. It's a rest day. Yeah. So that is the way I've been able to accomplish this, is to set up those customer support systems that allow me to take off those days, whether it's the middle of the week, whether it's the end of the week, whether it's a major holiday, it doesn't matter. Um, it doesn't matter. And so that's as simple as it is. It gets much more detailed in regards to like what systems to put in place and like what processes you need, and how do you make sure that questions are being answered while you're out of the office for that day without everything going haywire, especially if you are wired into the habit of putting out fires for your clients every single day, and you've formed a habit of never separating yourself from the computer until you've been there for 12 hours. Now, granted, I've probably been at my computer 12 hours today, but that's because, like I said, we're getting ready for a launch. So it's a building season for us right now. But this is not the normal for me, right? I could easily put in a couple of hours a day, 2 or 3 or 4 hours, and I'll be done. But if you have created a habit where you are glued to your computer for at least 12 hours a day, it can be very, no, it's not can be, it will be a challenge to separate yourself and to start to wean yourself off of workaholic syndrome. Or we call it solopreneur syndrome over here. It will be a challenge to wean yourself off of solopreneur syndrome. However, it's not to say it can't be done. It can be done because I have been there. I've successfully done it with the methods I'm currently teaching you on this episode. But two things you have to ask yourself and identify with is, one, why is this important to you? What's at stake if you don't start to rest and create a positive work-life balance for yourself? Is it your health? Are you experiencing high stress levels that are affecting other areas of your body? Is your cycle out of whack? Because your stress, your cells have stress within them. You know how I know? Happened to me. Is your cortisol through the roof? Did your doctor tell you you have to start to release some stress or you're going to put yourself into an early grave? Like, what's at stake? We got to be honest. We got to be honest. And then how are you going to start to wean yourself off of solopreneur syndrome? What's the one thing that you need to focus on in your business that will start to relieve some strain for you? There's a lot of things you could do that could relieve stress for you, but what's the one thing that's going to be the biggest lever? Maybe it is training your team to run customer support without you being there. Maybe it's just documenting what the customer journey is for your most profitable service so that you aren't the one who has to be stuck in client fulfillment and doing all of the coaching or the bookkeeping or the birth work or whatever service it is that you provide. Maybe you just need to document that so other team members or contractors or providers can help you deliver that service to more customers. What's the one thing? What's the one thing that's going to give you relief? Maybe you just have to get out of admin work. Maybe the mundane admin tasks are wearing you out. It's running you thin. Like there's no more, you have no more left to give. So maybe it's just that, getting yourself out of the admin tasks that'll give you some mental space. But what's going to help you move towards creating that positive work-life balance for your team? Why is it important and how are you going to do it? So let's talk about this last piece, which is knowing the difference between a season of balance and a season of building. First of all, what's the difference between the two? I like to say that, or let me put it this way, from my own experience, sometimes you are forced into a season of balance. And you may be here right now as you're listening to me describe this, but sometimes you're forced into a season of balance because there is a lesson that's being taught to you. There's a trial or a test that you are experiencing to make you stronger or to prepare you for something greater that is coming. And oftentimes we don't have control over when it's time for us to enter seasons of balance. And typically, seasons of balance are the result of seasons of pressure when the weight of the world feels like it's right on your shoulders and it feels like your head's going to pop because you have so many things that have or feel like they have to have your attention, to the point where you're creating your own stress trying to deal with the pressure. So seasons of balance can be forced. And other times you voluntarily walk into seasons of balance where you literally say, this is a time for me to rest. I've done enough. I've given enough. I'm good enough. I fought enough. I went hard enough. I'm more than enough. And I deserve to have balance and I deserve to rest. Sometimes you can voluntarily walk into seasons of balance, but you'll be able to tell based on the space that you create for your own well-being and for your own energy and for your own capacity. A season of balance can be a reset. It can be a recovery. It can be a release of that pressure. It can be a restart, a refresher. a change of scenery, and sometimes it's voluntarily taken. But you should have regular seasons of balance. Honestly, I would suggest having seasons of balance in some form or fashion every 60 days, even if it's you taking a weekend to refresh, to recharge. And quite honestly, if you are using your mental IP to make decisions, high level decisions, you're going to need more time to rest because of how much mental capacity you put into the work that you do. Typically, CEOs and leaders and visionaries, it takes a lot more rest for us to recharge because of how much we put into every area of work and to every area that we work in on a daily basis. I mean, you're thinking for your company, you're thinking for the future of your company, you're helping your team members think through solutions, especially when 80 to 90%, 95% of the business tasks and projects are on you. All you do is think. So you need a lot more time to rest and refresh and reset. So you should definitely be taking a season of balance every 60 days without a doubt. For longer than 2 days, I would suggest they be anywhere from 4 to 5 days. Every 2 months, you should be doing that. But the difference between a season of balance and a season of building is when you're building, I mean, come on, it's no holds bar. It's all gas, no brakes. When you're in the season of building, you're expanding, you're growing, you're branching out, you're trying new things, you're stepping into new territories, you're showing up in new environments, you're putting your face into new rooms, you are courting new conversations, right? Like when you're in a season of building, you're building brick by brick. The thing is, you can't always be in a season of building. That is not a constant state to live in. Why? Because everything has a season. Imagine if we only ever had summer, no other seasons. It was just summer all the time. What would happen to the vegetation, to the plants, to the planet, right? That's a reason it's called seasons and times, and things come and they go and they change. It's because it's keeping it's naturally time and seasons are naturally doing their job of keeping everything in order, in balance. And if we only experienced one of the 4 seasons, everything would continue to be out of balance. So if you want to put your work life, your personal life, and really your team's future back in balance, you have to start identifying when you are in seasons of balance versus seasons of building, and when your team is in a season of balance or a season of building. Because they're humans, they're going to go through changes just like you. So not only do I want you to recognize the difference between the two, but I want you to start to be aware of when each season is upon you. Yeah? And when your team is in either one. Because if your team needs to be in a season of balance, but you're pushing them and you're straining them and you're overworking them to be in a season of building, you are asking to not have a team. You are asking for them to go to LinkedIn when they're on their break and start to submit applications to other organizations. You're asking for high turnover rates amongst your team members. It doesn't matter how many times you do performance reviews or how many employee benefits you provide or how many incentives you give them to stay. If they need to be in a season of balance and you're pulling on them as if they're in a season of building, they won't stay with you long. You may have trained yourself to work in seasons of building all year round, but your team members will not do it. And so if you want to create a positive work-life balance for your team, these are the areas that I want you to start evaluating and pay attention to. Let me know what you thought about this episode today. I'm curious to know if you're in a season of balance or a season of building right now. Where are you? How are you feeling? Did any of this resonate with you? And really, what's your biggest takeaway after listening to this episode? Just give me one action item, one thing you're going to do to create more positive work-life balance amongst your team after listening to this. Don't forget, registration for the Building Business Resilience Challenge opens up tomorrow. It's a 5-day event. We're going to be running from May 8th to May 12th. I hope to see you inside. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you for the next one.